Now the fun begins.
Budget.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and of course, PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So, be sure to subscribe to us, review us, rate us, all that jazz, all the logistical things, you know, all the, what was the word, Mike? I can't remember it. What's the, not interact with us. I can't. Engagement.
Impressions?
Yeah, impressions.
Engagement.
Same shit. Yeah, interact with us in some fucking way. Where are we get a podcast at? And follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. I'm your host, as always, Travis White, aka Travis, on most internet platforms. Joining me, as always, my partner in crime, my co-pilot, Mike P-Pack. Mike, what is good, my friend? What's going on? And fill me in on, you went back to the well a little bit, and you threw it off right, from the beginning whenever you got in the Discord call. You had to remind some people that you may be away from the game, but Daddy's home, and Daddy's just got to take care of business real quick.
Yeah, sometimes whenever little kids start acting a fool, you kind of have to give them that big brother, that dad treatment.
I always think of that fucking video of the dude with his son with Goldeneye, and he's like, oh no, pick that controller up. You want to run your fucking mouth.
Literally. But yeah, I mean, I competed in the Halo HCS Open this past weekend. Just picked it up on a whim. Kind of played a little bit of matchmaking and played some custom games before the actual tournament, like a couple of days before. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, pretty much just picked it up here, and yeah, wound up placing what was top 24 that day, but there were already 8 teams that were qualified for the Pro League, so technically top 32. Still kind of getting it done. I was a little bit, once the later rounds kind of hit and we were playing against better competition with like King of the Hill and stuff, definitely was a little bit of an issue there for our team, because most of us have pretty much, we don't really play that much anymore. We just kind of wanted to play. I was in the mood to play, so I messaged a few people. They wound up being in the mood to play, so it wound up kind of being the perfect storm. And yeah, got the job done there. So
nice. Gave
that a little bit of a shot. Also played a little bit of Hunt Showdown recently.
Nice.
I'm still, enjoying that. Halo 2 Project Cartographer is something that I played the last couple of days. Been having a lot of fun with that, playing like with the hardcore. I mean, there's like a group of people who still to this day play MLG game types and settings in like custom games, basically on dedicated servers on H2PC. So still get to play that every once in a while. Happy to have that back in my rotation here and there, because it's a lot of fun to play some Halo 2. But the one thing I really wanted to talk about today, and normally I just sit here and shit talk 343 pretty much on a daily occurrence, and I'm like proud to be that guy. Someone has to do it, because if no one does it, then
it's your cross to bear, I guess.
Literally, it's my cross to bear, but more so, and
not necessarily the developers, like directly. Like, it's probably not like Joe Blow, who's just a programmer or an artist or something like that, but the ones who need fucking like to get a fucking wedgie and a half, like metaphorically and literally probably, or fucking swirly, are the executives who are like, no, we need to make X amount of dollars, so we're going to do this shitty free-to-play mobile game. It just, you got to pay, $110K a season, not just the period, a season, if you want to have the best build possible and max level gear and shit like that. in this game, so we got to milk the fuck out of it. So yeah, this is what you guys are doing, period. Like,
Yeah.
that's the fuckers who need, like, they need taken out back and just fucking dunked. Like,
Yeah, and I'm not gonna try to say like I don't know or I know how other people's like life situations are, but like as a game dev, you know what's going on. Like when you're working on the game, you know when they're telling you to implement these types of features, what it's going to equate to. And I'm not like condoning like losing your house and losing everything, but like at some point the people that are working on these games are going to have to stand up for something. I mean, you know, kind of like some of the like the Netflix walkouts that were happening. Like it's not necessarily the same thing because they're not endorsing a quote unquote bad person in someone's opinion, but it's like it's literally everything that's wrong with mobile games specifically. To the point where the number one player in the world has spent something like I think it's actually $220,000 right now. So yeah, I mean, the people who worked on the game, I understand that they're carrying out, you know, they're supposed to be carrying out someone else's bidding, but at some point, like, you got to have some type of personal fortitude to just like either leave the job or stand up for something. And again, I know Blizzard's going through some shit right now. They're going through trying to get, you know, some unionized workers as far as the training or the QA testers are involved. And you know, Blizzard Activision Blizzard for all intents and purposes left one stinky upper decker turd in the rental house before Microsoft came in and took it back over. And you know, they took the lid off the top of the toilet and just took the shit in there and then put the lid back on and left. Then it's been about a week, and now they hand it over to Microsoft, and now Microsoft's going to have to figure out, you know, what to do here because, you know, for all intents and purposes, it is really. I mean, I know some people might be thinking like I'm overplaying this, but it's as bad as it sounds. It's actually worse. I don't think I can put into words just how bad it is, not only for gaming, but just for everybody involved. You're talking about, you know, preying on addictive personalities for people that might have, you know, a heightened, you know, I guess addiction or might have gambling problems. You're preying on people, you know, and whenever these decisions are being made by these companies, it's not something that they're deciding like on a whim, like, oh yeah, let's just make this game in a certain way and maybe it will elicit money. In this case, Activision Blizzard would have brought in psychologists, they would have brought in case studies, and they would have figured out what is the way to try to extract the most money out of not even just the average player, but especially the whales. But like even the average player is getting bled dry. I saw a clip from Dexatero that a guy spent $10,000 from New Zealand and literally didn't get a single, I guess it's like a level 5 gem or something, whatever they call it. So, I mean, he just literally lit $10,000 on fire.
Jesus Christ.
It's worse than it sounds. Like, I cannot put into words. I can't use a cadence to. If you haven't been paying attention to what's going on with Diablo Immortal, it's worse than I could ever make it sound.
Yeah.
It's basically the epitome of like everything that's wrong with mobile gaming, everything that was wrong with Activision Blizzard, all bundled up into one pile of shit and sent off, you know, to make sure that they get their money before Microsoft, you know, before the Microsoft deal goes through. So I don't know where you go from here because it is such an atrocity to the game. Like Diablo 3 was a bad enough atrocity to the franchise. Like slapping Diablo on this is just such a it's a really, I mean, I can't even, there's no words. Like disappointing doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of what it does for Diablo. Like it's such a shame that Diablo Immortal has the name Diablo on it.
Yeah.
Because Diablo 2 and Diablo 1 were such special experiences. And I know there were people that really loved Diablo 3, but Diablo 3 was one of the problem children that started to dip their fucking toe in the water with this real money transaction stuff.
Yeah, with what, the auction house or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, for seasoned Diablo 2 veterans, you might be saying, like, oh, yeah, you're crying about the real money auction house, but Diablo 2 has had D2 JSP for years, and people use real money on that. And it's like, yeah, that's, like, a problem, but at the same time, what, like, Blizzard's trying to crack down on real money trading because they're not making any money from it.
Right, yeah.
But
it's a problem. It's a problem because their hand isn't in the cookie jar on this one.
Yeah, and like
they're not getting a slice of the pie on this one.
A lot of the big Diablo content creators were like super, like, not even really allowed to talk about D2 JSP for a while because there were Blizzard employees watching their streams when D2R first came out and talking about D2 JSP, which if you don't know what it is, basically it uses forum gold as a currency to kind of regulate trades. So basically, like, let's say when me, Jack, and DJ, we rolled a perfect 2020 3 to sorceress skills sorceress torch. And when we were looking at D2 JSP prices on it, you're talking about 3,000 or 3,500 forum gold. And then you can also use like forum gold to buy like high runes like Burr and Jaw runes, which are super important for like Enigma, which is a rune word that allows any character wearing it to teleport. So it's actually like one of the most important pieces of armor in the game for anyone not a sorceress, but even sorceresses still like to use it for the low strength requirements. And yeah, you could technically use real dollars to get forum gold to buy high runes if you wanted to, which whether or not some of that gear is being farmed out by bots, whatever, bots have been a tale as old as time with Diablo 2, but that's just such a far cry from like what is actually going on and Blizzard just being complicit and actually, in this case with Diablo Immortal, just promoting that type of behavior. So, you know, if you've had any, I mean, I'm not going to stop you from trying it. I would beg and implore you and plead with you to please don't bother downloading this game. Don't bother playing it. This is another just like pile of shit. Like, not only do they have the stuff with Jesse McCree and all that stuff come out where they are quick to change character names in Overwatch, which is the right thing to do, but then they release this game. So it's just like, it's just more proof that there are entities out there that aren't true allies. There are entities out there that are looking to play your emotions to extract every single cent that they can get out of you. And Blizzard doesn't deserve any of your cents at this point in time. I'm of the camp where, like, if I hadn't already spent money on Diablo 2 Resurrected, I probably wouldn't buy another Blizzard game for the foreseeable future. It's honestly that bad, in my opinion, that it just deserves a wholesale boycott where nobody needs to spend any more money on Blizzard shit. And like, Diablo Immortal isn't going to be fixed by just making it more free to play friendly. The fact of the matter is this is what they were planning to do. Everyone was dunking on Blizzard because, like, years ago when this was announced, because everyone predicted this was going to happen. Is this a very late April Fool's joke? Yeah, like, everyone was dunking on these idiots because they knew this is the bullshit that they were going to pull. Right. And then Blizzard's just like, oh.
Well, and that's what pisses me off. Because that's what really pisses me off about a lot of this is because, and that's why I say it's on the fucking executives who really need, like, more on the publishing arm of Blizzard and Activision, and, you know, hopefully with Microsoft's acquisition, they can kind of regain some of the trust from the fucking consumer with making appropriate changes, like getting Bobby Kotick the fuck out. But that's why I say, like, I feel bad for the people who have no say in this shit, because they're not the ones who have to, like, or the executives are the ones who typically have to go out on stage and fucking say, hey, here's the game, or here's something that we know you don't want, but here it is. We didn't want to make this either, but here it is. Like it's the game director, maybe. It's the, and granted, at smaller, that's the big crux on why you've seen indie gaming blow up in the past, 10 plus years, that it's just, you don't have to answer to anybody for the most part. You can make the game that you want to make. But you see so many of these, even if it's the game director or something coming out, hey, here's this game that we're working on or whatever. Typically, they're not the ones who are truly making a lot of these changes or a lot of these decisions that are clearly primarily focused on the financial end. Like, period.
Yeah, and it's just so predatory, and I know...
Right, and that's why I feel bad for the guy who went out there and the dev who went out there and announced that game, and then they took questions at BlizzCon, and the guy dunked on them, which kind of rightfully so, because, like, he's pissed off that, like, hey, this isn't what we've been asking for, this is the exact opposite, like, not to be entitled, but nobody wants this, like, it's been shown, this isn't your wheelhouse, and it's fine to step outside that sometimes, but this is completely, like, it's egregious from what you're already talking about, and they're probably the ones not even making that decision. That it's like, like, what the fuck, man? Because all that does is shit on your employees. Like, the fuck would they want to do anything for you then?
Which obviously Activision Blizzard has never shown.
Right, they never fucking care.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck. They don't want to be the ones that are on the like, it goes that way with so many shittily run corporations where, like, their quote-unquote leadership want to make these awful decisions, and then they don't want to face the consequences and answer the hard questions. And I know that Activision Blizzard has been, a little bit of, like, a pain in the ass, especially in Diablo fans, because, instead of keeping the old team from Diablo 2 to work on Diablo 3, they bring the head of World of Warcraft in to work on Diablo 3, which is why that game was fucking terrible, as far as, like, comparing it to Diablo 2 and classic Diablo experiences. It's because they wanted to try to do anything they could to, get more money out of it, like, they do with WoW.
Right, and they want to try to, and I don't want to, this is a really, like, not, I don't want to say peeled back, but very watered down, like, way of looking at it, but they want to milk it for as much as they can.
Yeah.
And I mean that by they want to try to not necessarily on the content end, but they want to provide as many opportunities for you to invest your money in as possible and for you to stay in there. They want, like I've said before, with some of these games that you're like, why the fuck can't they just like Assassin's Creed? Like, Ubisoft has always been like this. And I like a lot of Ubisoft games. Like, they check a lot of boxes in terms of, like, there are a lot of box checking games for, hey, it has this, and this, and I think it's more just from they need to have this to be a AAA video game kind of thing. Like, their mindset, that's what it is. But they want these games to be, they want to market this game to the person who is, hey, I only buy, 1 or 2 games a year, and that's what I play, like, because that's all I want to invest in. I'm the guy who buys Madden and Call of Duty every year, and that's it. Like, they want that average consumer, this to be their only game they play. That's why Assassin's Creed has fucking a trillion things to do in it that, like, most people are like, fuck, we don't need this much. Like, we don't, or we have, that's why they have all these monetization elements in it that it's like, yeah, I could buy an XP boost or whatever for Assassin's Creed just to help me level up so I could, maybe golden path the story a little bit quicker. Like,
yeah,
it's things like that just, like, they're just wanting to make these games like, this is the game you buy. And there's it's been completely oversaturated for quite a long time in that mindset. That's why you see so many, like, when you have, like, a Jedi Fallen Order or something that comes out from one of these studios that traditionally produces and develops these games, it's a smash hit. It's like, people are like, that's fucking refreshing. A game that I could just buy and there it is. That's single player complete game that I could just pop in and boom, I don't have to worry about the metaphorical, like, retail employee coming up my ass 24/7 being like, hey, do you need help with anything? Do you need any help? Do you want me to show you something? Do you want, like, it's just a standalone product. And that's what Blizzard used to be so good at, of these, yeah, they had multiplayer and things like that in their games, but, like, not everything needs to be a live service. And I think that's the biggest thing that people are like starting to realize, that it could live and breathe and you can get content updates with it, sure, but not everything has to have a season pass. Like, not everything has to have a battle pass. Not everything has to have these things that, you know, you feel pressured sometimes. And I'm all for, like, hey, you know, like even with Fortnite or whatever, like Destiny. Destiny's a great example. I hopped back in yesterday for the first time in months because I'm ready to get back into Destiny. Like, I go on swings with it and I'll put another 40 hours into it, you know, over a couple weeks, and then I'll probably be good for a while, and then I'll come back a couple weeks later. Like, it's like once a new season pops up, I get back in, and typically I end up paying the $10 for it because it's a free-to-play game, and I get my time out of it. It's a well-polished experience. Like, yes, that's great. Here, take it. You have my $10 or whatever. Like, I'm totally cool with that. That's great. But it's to the end of, like, when I pop into, for example, Street Fighter. Street Fighter was another game. I bought it for $1. Street Fighter 5 was $1 on Humble's website. They did a Capcom bundle for the summer or something like that, and it was like, for $1 you get Street Fighter 5 on Steam and like 2 other games. I'm like, yes, I'll fucking do that. I have like maybe like 10% of an interest in Street Fighter, but fuck it, it's $1. Like, it may be an hour of fun, but $1 for an hour of fun, that's pretty damn good. Like, I'll do that. But, like, I popped in, and it literally took me 5 minutes to get through all of the fucking, like, monetization things. Like, I'm like, I just want to fucking fight the computer real quick. That's all I want to do. Like, I don't need all of this. And that's great that there's all this content, but, like, just, it doesn't, like, nothing has to be, like, nothing has to be a World of Warcraft. Not everything has to be a World of Warcraft. Not everything has to be, you know, a Fortnite. It doesn't have to be these experiences that are living, breathing, whatever. Like, there's a reason why so many fucking, like, incredible games are just single player. They're standalone experiences.
Yeah.
I'd rather take, you know, granted, Bethesda's dipped their toe into, you know, multiplayer with, you know, Fallout 76, and we've seen how that's gone or whatever. But, like, I would gladly take if it took every fucking 7 years to get a game that was a Bethesda title that is deep as shit, and I don't get, like, 24/7 bombarded with, like, hey, did you get the season pass for this game? Did you get the XP boost? Did you get this? Here, buy these credits for this. Like, I don't
trouble here, spend some money and get this gear, like,
right. And it's just, not everything needs that. I am all for giving money to gladly support developers, especially free to play products, or just games that, like, I've gotten, like, yeah, it's $60, but, like, if I get fucking 500 hours out of a game, fuck yeah, I'll give it more than $60. Like, that's a great value. Like, absolutely. I would gladly give more money to developers who have, you know, this is their livelihood to make art. The people who don't have a say in all the fucking shitty stuff that we get mad about. But, like, sometimes you just don't need it. You don't need something like we've seen with Activision Blizzard titles or Ubisoft titles where they're clearly not supposed to be these multiplayer experiences, but you're trying to implement these elements that are very, monetization heavy that just don't, like, it's just scummy. Like, it's scummy, and it's a poor reflection on, you know, from the 1% onto the 99 that don't have a fucking say in this and just want to make a dope video game for you. That have that mindset of, like, I'm a full-grown adult making video games for a living. It's awesome. Like, that's what most of the people who are doing want to do. Like, but it's the suits and ties that fucking, hey, we got to find ways to engage people more in this content and get them to stay longer and invest more of their time and obviously then again their money, because it's a business at the end of the day. And that's why art and business never fucking mix. Never. They'll never fucking mix. They'll always be intertwined because people want to experience great art and entertainment, but the monetization end will always fucking just ruin it. At the end of the day, you'll find some way to get a sour taste in your mouth.
Yep. And I will say that, like,
sorry, I went on a tangent there too, but
it's completely warranted and fine. And I feel like it's an important thing because listeners of our show might not be privy to this type of information, and they might not necessarily be aware of what's going on. But like, it's getting to the point where we are reaching critical levels of gaming's popularity where it's getting mainstream enough that the wrong type of people, or at least with the wrong motives, are becoming more and more involved with the process. And what I mean by that is, like, back in the day, like, you know, N64, but even back in Sega, you know, a lot of the game development studios were making games because they wanted to make games, and yeah, they wanted to make money, but like, it was out of a love for the art. Yeah. And we're getting to the point where there are a lot of studios, there are a lot of people, executives that work with these studios that are snakes in the grass, that are pretending like they like the art. And then when push comes to shove, when they finally get their chance, that's when they, you know, they do whatever they can. Like, you know, we knew Activision Blizzard, we knew what kind of people they were, but there are a lot of other studios that are, you know, that it's going to come out where it's like this. And all I have to say is, you see studios, you know, like the like Kojima Productions with Elden Ring, like, ask yourself, like,
or From Software, you mean?
From Software. From Software. What kind of experience was that game for me for $60? That's art. That is doing it for the right reasons. They love it. They want people to enjoy it. They want people to be challenged. They want people to feel accomplished after they beat something. But there's no way for you to go in and buy and just beat a bunch of bosses, right? But, you know, there's other studios that might want to appear as if they're From Software or they're similar to them, but they're really not, and you can pay to, you know, pay to win.
Well, that's the funny part, and that's what's funny about so much of it. Like, you've seen the industry, for example, excellent example is Breath of the Wild. You see Breath of the Wild come out in 2017 and have really this revolutionary experience that's thrown out to people, where, yes, it wasn't completely, to a lot of, you know, people playing games, like, yeah, it was another open world game, but so many of the little nuances in the atmosphere and the environmental storytelling and the explorability and the open-ended gameplay all mixed together and intertwined and making it so it just works. Like, all these systems that are at play in this game all interconnect and work somehow. Like, that game coming out, and then you see so many studios at the AAA level, specifically third-party ones, come out and really obviously lean into heavy of, we want to have our own Breath of the Wild. It's inspired by Breath of the Wild. It's this and that, yada, yada. Like, and so many of the times, like, I always think a perfect example is the Ubisoft game, shocker. What is it? Phoenix, Uprising? No. Is that it? No, that's not it. The Ubisoft Phoenix game, I'm gonna get mad now. I'm looking it up. Phoenix Rising, that's it. I was kind of close. Yeah, Immortals Phoenix Rising. It was originally Gods and Monsters, and then they changed the name during development. But it was Ubisoft's answer to Breath of the Wild, and not that it was a bad game, but you look at it and you look at the comparisons of it, of this very much feels like the knockoff, like, Apple Arcade version of, not Apple Arcade, but like iOS storefront version of somebody trying to capitalize on a trend. And and like I said, not to, you know, and that's why I'm not saying it on directly on the developer's end, but more so the actions that led to some of those things coming of, well, we need to get this game out in a relatively quick fashion because we need to hit this holiday season to make sure we make this X amount of money. So we're going to have to cut corners to get there. And we're okay if, you know, hey, you got to work 80 hours for a week for the next, you know, 2 months. But you know what? That's still not enough time because we're taking 2 years worth of development and shoving it into 18 months or whatever. Or, you know, like, you're going to cut edges and you're going to see consequences to that. And the consequences were a not as poorly developed game, not to mention on top of that, the monetization issues that popped up with that game that, like, hey, yeah, you could just pay all this money to then just kind of fly through this game and get these packs and whatnot. Like, it's just, when you could have just invested and made a fucking, you know, you could have taken that game, the base elements of that game, because I even tried, I think I played a preview of that game. Yeah, I previewed that game whenever it came out, and they were doing Stadia previews, and I did a Stadia preview of it, and the game actually was kind of fun. Like, it wasn't necessarily bad. It had decent elements to it. But then when you see it and you compare it and you see the issues that so many AAA, like third-party, you know, these large third-party publishers do usually have with their, or enforce in their games, like monetization issues, it's just like, read the room kind of thing. Like, you could, the answer's right there, what you need to do. It's invest in a studio, take as much time as you need, and invest in making a game that has incredible replayability. Not saying like, oh, it needs to be a live service, you need to come back. No, I've replayed Fallout 4, Skyrim, Fallout 3, Oblivion, how many goddamn times? You know, just looking at the game, and we're talking racing games, Death Stranding, look at fucking the Arkham series, Red Dead Redemption 2, like, I played that multiple times. The Resident Evil games, I've all played multiple times. It's because these games are just, they're well developed, and they lean into what's good within them. There's a reason why these games are successful, and it's because they are well developed, and they focus on the gameplay and the polish that are built into those games, not necessarily, sure, they worry about selling a fuck ton of these games. Red Dead Redemption sold a fuck ton of copies. Of course they're worried about that. But more so, they're just fucking worried about making sure the game will sell itself. I mean, look at The Last of Us Part 2. And we'll get to talking about it here in a minute, and not... well, technically, we're going to talk about The Last of Us, because this is a PC show as well, and you're going to be able to play the first one on PC soon. So, but Neil Druckmann, the director of The Last of Us Part 2, said, hey, for a mature-rated, you know, graphically... or, you know, it's very graphic game, it is of adult nature, or however you want to say it, exclusive title to PlayStation, sold, as of right now, sold 10 million copies. 10 million copies. That's incredible for a mature rated video game. Like, your market is a lot smaller already off the bat for that, period. But on top of that, like, there's a reason why this, you know, it was 7 years between these games, and a reason why it took so long. And sure, there are some issues with Naughty Dog that need to fucking be handled in terms of crunch and whatnot leading into that game and what it, you know, costs to make that game. But at the end of the day, I pop in that game and I'm playing a fully fledged, incredible experience from front to back, and I played through that game multiple times. I platinumed it. Like, there's a reason why there's a difference between replayability from, hey, a new season's out, and hey, a new this is out, and I'm all for live service games. I still fucking play them a lot, but there's a reason why a lot of these games find success in replayability and people still playing them. The fact that I can go on, pull up Skyrim right now, the special edition, at least, on Steam, and right now there are 21,000 people playing it. Let's look at, just to, you know, well, Fallout 76 is a bad example, but 5,000 people, a live service title, 5,000 people playing that. Not everything can be, you know, a Skyrim to that success or whatever, but it shows you, like, you know, there are games that, like, you can get in there and you could find ways to make replayability without, and it doesn't have to be these, you know, huge megaton open world titles, but they can also just be well-crafted experiences that make me want to invest my time without saying, hey, if you pay this, you're going to get this to come back and do that. Like, I'm all for keeping the wheel churning and keeping, you know, cost of entry down on games and making different ways to, you know, still pay the developers and, you know, fund these games without putting a $70, you know, sticker on, which is still going to happen no matter what. But, like, finding ways to, you know, get more money into developers' pockets, and while still getting great content to us, the consumer, and getting these games out in an appropriate manner, while also respecting their time and yada yada, the balance with that. But there's ways that aren't necessarily monetized directly like that, like pay to win, play to play, whatever you want to call it. Like,
yeah, and then you're not also, like, not only are you charging your players a lot of money to play, like in Diablo Immortal's case, then you also have it to where if you don't log in every day, you lose the items that you just paid for.
Mm-hmm.
So like, not only are they having you pay to win, now they have you hooked, because if you don't connect, 29 out of 30 days or something, then you're going to lose the item. Like it's, yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on there that needs to be talked about. And you're right. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. Like this is just not the right way.
Yeah. And that's really what it comes down to, is just, I'm just at a loss for words anymore with some of this stuff. Like, I am all for supporting developers and putting not only their mental health and their work-life balance first and foremost ahead of stuff, unionization. I'm all for that. It's the 1% that fucks everything up, that just a dollar, like, we're talking hold on one second, Mike.
Sure.
All right, sorry about that.
You're good.
But there's just ways that this can be handled differently, that you can find easier ways to not only make a shit ton of cash, but also respect not only your developers and the talent that you have on your staff to getting these games, but also to your consumers at the end of the day, the people who are investing in these, that, not everything. That's why look at so many indie games that, are, could be between $20 to $30 or whatever, that may be shorter experiences, but people are still buying them up left and right because there's a reason why. It's because they're well crafted. They're, not necessarily down your throat about everything. It's just frustrating. And I'm with you that I have a soft spot for Diablo. It's a game that, a franchise that I've played every one since they come out, except for this one, because I feel weird about playing it because it's just so over the top, like, scummy. Just over the top scummy. Like, I don't know how else to say it. It's just scummy and it's sad. So, anywho, though, that might have been our longest intro ever, 37 minutes. I'll make mine quick, though, at least in terms of what I've been playing. Wrapped up my Skyrim replay. That was all fun and games, whatever, yada yada. It's Skyrim. We've all played it a billion times. And I talked about it last week about how I was enjoying it more this time, though, just playing it and forcing it to play in a different way and making it flex itself a little bit. But after that, though, Molly and I, here's one for you, Mike. I almost actually sent in our group chat. So Molly and I, she kind of was like, we haven't played. She was like, I kind of want to play Mortal Kombat. You have Mortal Kombat, right? And I'm like, yeah, I have Mortal Kombat 11. I was like, to be honest, I've been wanting to play through the campaign of that for a long time. So we booted that up. And I could tell you, Mike, you know all about this, being a Mortal Kombat guy. As bonkers as the fucking, lore and, continuity is right now within the mythos of Mortal Kombat, it's to the point where, I'm all for, the first half, I was like, oh, yeah, this is fun. This is, haha, they have their counterparts from the 90s here and this and that. Oh, it's cute and whatever. But it, got to a point where we were both kind of oh, when a fight would come up, one of us would play it. The other one would just we'd just be sitting there on our phones. Where it got way too out there, not in the extent of oh, this is fun and crazy or whatever. It was just I could care less what's going on. I had a great time. Don't get me wrong. I just couldn't tell you one fucking thing that happened besides Liu Kang becoming the fire god and, obviously Johnny Cage and fucking Sonya Blade interacting with Cassie Cage and that being a whole thing, with their younger versions and hating each other and yada yada. But besides that, it was a great game. We had a great time playing through it. I just couldn't fucking tell you one thing about the actual story of that game. It was fucking bananas. And then, like I said, hopping back into Destiny, I got the itch that I was I'm ready to play some after fucking 150 hours of Bethesda games over the past handful of weeks or month or two now. I was I'm ready to play something that has loose ends to it that I can just get in and kind of grind around and, but I'm also too catching up on just the lore of Destiny, because they dropped the Witch Queen at the worst time when Elden Ring was coming out, and also Horizon 2 Forbidden West, which I literally like put 2 hours into that game and just haven't touched it since because of fucking Elden Ring. So I need to get back to that, but I also need to get to Witch Queen, but I also need to catch up on a lot of the lore because I'm kind of lapsed a little bit. And Bungie does a horrible job at like, I don't want to say I'm a new player. Like, I think I have like maybe like probably total between console and PC like 200 hours, but it is like I don't know a lot of the lore going on because when I got into playing Destiny was already very much in the middle of Destiny 2, and it like they already vaulted content at that point, and like they just do a very poor job of getting you to want to invest in the actual universe of Destiny, which is cool because it has so much cool lore. It's just they do a horrible job onboarding you to that experience, and they need to figure something out if they want long-term more people to keep coming into Destiny, because it is a fucking fantastic multiplayer experience. I love it. But anyways, we've gone on long enough about playing what we're playing and whatnot. We got to get to our big topic. Summer Games Fest. So it's that time of year, E3 time typically, but obviously E3 is fucking gonzo right now. That Jeff Keighley a couple years ago during the pandemic, when it first kicked up in 2020, kind of said, "Okay, no E3, that's fine. I'll carry the flag. This is his cross to bear." That he said, we all have one at least, you know. But he, said we're gonna do it digitally. We're gonna, we're going to kind of, basically, I think what he wanted to do was pretty much put parentheses around and kind of encapsulate all of these standalone showcases and conferences and things like that, whatever you want to call them, and kind of group them together to say, this is one funnel that people can kind of get all of this at. And then that kind of evolved into, obviously, Summer Games Fest last year being more of his own thing and kind of being more of instead of a rapper, kind of being like, no, we're kind of standing on our own a little bit, and we want people to partner with us and kind of throw shade at E3, obviously, that came back digitally. And this year was even more stepping it up and whatnot. And Jeff even confirmed as of next year, as we know, E3 coming back next year in both digital and in-person events, Jeff Keighley will also be hosting Summer Games Fest digitally, but also in person next year. So he's doing some kind of in-person event. But their kickoff event came this year, or today, and he had his own kind of conference that he typically does, very similar to, the Game Awards when they do announcements and whatnot, and similar to last year. Hey, here's Summer Games Kickoff. We're going to have world premieres, and we're going to have, deep dives into some of the games that are previously announced, gameplay and things like that. Basically just a big, conference like you would expect, but a lot of different stuff. And it's been kind of this home. I think so many people associate Jeff now with bigger announcements because he typically tends to, because of his connections within the industry and because of him being this like singular entity of like, yes, Jeff Keighley is Mr. Video Game. Like, people gravitate towards him and want to show their games around him because he's so passionate. Like, it's just, he's one of the most unique individuals in this medium, period. And one of the best too, and very much a, hey, we got to rally around games, and, let them do the talking. But in general, though, they had their kickoff event this year, and we got some cool stuff. A lot of, I personally want to say, like, as somebody who plays across pretty much every platform now at this point, PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, there was definitely something for everyone there, and that's what I think is best. And what Jeff's really good at, too, is providing time, not only for your big AAA tentpole Call of Duty type, experiences, but also, too, making sure indie developers get just as much limelight as anyone else. And, like, he had a solo dev up there, premiering their game up there this year to make sure he got just as much, time out there as well. So it was really cool to see. But in general, though, it was mostly, I don't want to say it was peeled back, but I think it was very much the big reveal, at least of this one, was, or would have been, I should say, if it didn't leak 2 hours before the show, that The Last of Us Part 1, technically now you could call it, the first Last of Us is getting completely remade from the ground up. It's coming on PS5, but it's also coming on PC, which is why I was saying we're going to bring that around, later in the show or whatever. So now you'll be able to. That was the big reveal if it didn't get leaked earlier. But that kind of sets in motion, or at least sets the kind of like, hey, here was the biggest announcement from this game, or from the showcase. This you can expect, I guess, if you didn't watch the showcase or something like that, if that's your highest expectation, or that's your highest, or biggest reveal of it, you can expect kind of what the rest of the show was like in terms of levels of the fidelity of these announcements. We got cool stuff, but it was mostly, and I'm glad Jeff at one point did say, like, hey, we're going to have some cool stuff. You're going to see some cool world premieres and yada, yada, but temper your expectations a little bit. So we're not getting GTA 6 or anything like that. But it does also leave some questions open for Sunday's Xbox and Bethesda game showcase, which I'm very excited for, obviously, which we'll wrap up next week and kind of go over all the big reveals, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of big reveals there. So kind of looking at, obviously, Mike, I mentioned The Last of Us remake, the first one, getting a full from the ground remake, coming to PS5, but also coming to PC. And I know, Mike, you've also played it. I'm a much bigger Last of Us person, obviously. We played it at Adams and stuff like that before, but you guys are obviously a little more peeled back. At the same time, though, this is hands down this is one of those games that you do point to narratively, and you say this is art. This is a reason why you should play video games, in terms of the story that's being told, the acting, the emotion that's being written into this game, the environmental storytelling, like all these things that, yes, in 2013 when this game came out, and the mechanics of it, tad bit clunky, not necessarily the best in terms of a survival shooter, but at the same time, very much so, that's all secondary to what the actual, the game is. It's this world that you're, and these characters you're being engulfed into, and being, driven into adoring them and loving and hating them, but in such a good way. How important do you think, since this game is coming to PC and we could talk about it, it's applicable to the show, how important do you think something like this is, Mike, when it comes to, I guess, audiences that typically aren't necessarily, like, a PC audience typically isn't getting the traditional quote-unquote Sony game, the third-person, over-the-shoulder, narrative-driven action-adventure title, typically, that you're getting from PlayStation, which I love them. Don't get me wrong, that's my jam. But, and as somebody who plays a lot of PC, too, that's typically not what people are going for on PC. Do you think this game has the ability to change that at all?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Even though I'm not necessarily the biggest The Last of Us fan, it also is primarily probably because I just haven't been able to play it. It's always been on a platform that I haven't had access to. I've never really necessarily wanted to go get access to it just for this one game either, but I've also just never really had access to a PlayStation to be able to play this game in particular. So yeah, I definitely think that bringing this game over to PC does a lot of good for exposure to a fan base that might not have previously been able to play it. But also, I feel like it's also really good for game preservation. That's a topic that we've talked about, at one point in time. And there will be a time down the road where there might be some PlayStation 3 only games that might never get the remaster treatment, or might never get updated, and being able to bring it to PC is a great way to make sure that it stays in the fold and that is preserved. But yeah, this is going to be a way that someone like me, who's never really had a PlayStation, besides I think the last PlayStation I had was PS2, PS2 and PS1, but like, now I'll actually get to play this game and get to experience it just like everyone else has, and see what kind of all the hype is about. And I get there's going to be people out there, including myself, who has said it about the Bethesda games on Xbox. It's like, if you wanted it bad enough, you'd go get it. That's partially true, but also, it's also worth noting that being able to experience this game is in Naughty Dog's best interest, and it's in PlayStation's best interest, and it's kind of in, almost it feels like pretty much everyone's best interest.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. And I totally agree that I'm still in the camp. Like, I understand exclusives. I understand why they exist. It's a reason why, so many of us are, beating the drum of acquisitions and whatnot for Microsoft, because we want to see them invest in their, first party output. And sure, exclusive, the first party output usually comes with exclusivity to that platform, but that's not the case really in 2022 anymore. Like, yeah, we're still going to see that, but at the same time too, like, as more of these acquisitions come around, this is more and more continue to becoming a just fucking like hodgepodge. Like you're having with Activision and Blizzard and Bethesda being under a console manufacturer's umbrella now, fiscally that is. Same with Bungie under Sony now. Like, things like that wires are getting crossed. Does that necessarily make sense to take these, tentpole franchises that have been available on pretty much anything and condense them down to one platform? And, at first I always was, hey, I think you lose more money that way, that could drive more money into your developers and whatnot, like by letting these games be on PlayStation and PC. Obviously they're going to be on PC, but you get what I mean, on your quote-unquote rival platform. And at the end of the day, though, you don't spend billions of dollars to put this stuff elsewhere. You want to drive people to your platform. So I get it. Like, and that's why at the same time, we've also been like, why we're kind of upset that 2022, the back end of it, at least right now, recording before the showcase this Sunday, the back end of 2022 looks very dry right now. And, hey, we want more content from Xbox, and typically that comes as exclusive. So, but these releases like this, like same with anything that would come out, like fuck, put Halo Infinite on PS5. I really don't care. Like that's fine. I don't give a shit. Like to me, releasing these games on as many platforms as possible only is a good thing. That doesn't like, yeah, you could have, specific content, maybe, hey, on Xbox, you're getting, you're getting to have these added features to it in terms of, testing maps early or something. I don't know, like just content in general that is specific to that platform. Sure. But the game in general, like having a game on multiple, on every platform as possible is only a good thing to me. It opens up this opens up a whole new audience to Naughty Dog games. Not only that, but also, when we see the Uncharted collection come to PC relatively soon, we're going to have Naughty Dog be opened up to a whole new audience, the biggest audience out there on the PC market that typically, they haven't had access to. And these are more of those, third person over the shoulder action adventure, very traditional console experiences that are now coming to PC that, that only opens up more people to this product. And to me, I mean, I adore Naughty Dog. They're one of my favorite developers, period. That I want more people to play The Last of Us, period. I want more people to play Uncharted, period. So if that means putting it on PC, fuck yeah, put it on PC. I'm going to buy it again, probably, because I want to speak with my wallet, and my wallet wants to say, yes, I want to see more experiences like this on PC. Like, I want to see these games that I adore, spread a little bit further. Now, at the same time, too, did we need a remake of this game that isn't even 10 years old yet, like from a ground-up remake? Especially, too, when we got a remaster of the game at the beginning of last generation that is easily playable right now on your console on PlayStation? Probably not. But at the same time, too, I get why they had a bunch of assets left over from Last of Us Part 2 from flashbacks and things like that. And don't want to go into spoilers, obviously, but because that'll eventually come to PC now. But they updated previous scenes from the game. Like, sure, why not just build on that and put something out? And, hey, it's opening up a new experience to people. Would I have liked to see kind of what you said on the end of Preservation and whatnot? Would I have liked to see a couple of different games like, I don't know, Metal Gear Solid in general, and maybe investing in, hey, let's, invest in a studio to maybe remake that game, work it out with Konami, because Konami doesn't really want jack shit to do with their games anymore. That, hey, work out a licensing deal and have somebody, remake that, or do something that involves bringing that franchise forward, because outside of Metal Gear Solid 5, it's fucking difficult to play those games. And they're some of the most influential games of all time. And you only have a very finite amount of avenues to play those games on right now. And they're not always accessible. So, it's things like that I have more concern with, but I also love The Last of Us, so I'm also not going to be like, oh darn, I got to play this great game again with all new, graphical fidelity and gameplay elements and things like, oh darn. Oh.
Woe is you.
Yeah, woe is me. God, my first world problems. So yeah, I'm excited for that. One thing that I did want to talk about too, Mike, looking through the list here, from all the things that we talked about, is I mentioned it too in our group chat. Modern Warfare 2 was there, and we got an actual gameplay demo of it from their campaign that I've always kind of said, like, I've always been, you know me, and I would hope the listeners know me. I'm very finite in what I usually go for in my Call of Duty experiences. It's zombies, and I like to play some light multiplayer. Like, that's about it. And I did like the campaigns back in the day, and traditionally that's what I'd go to, but they kind of fell off, obviously, leading into Modern Warfare 2019. I've wanted to go back and play it because I've heard good things about it. But seeing a new seeing this campaign and what they're doing now in the Modern Warfare universe, I guess you want to say now, because there's so many branching paths with its original trilogy and then obviously now into the newer iteration of the trilogy, or what you're expecting to be a trilogy. I'm not sure if you got to really see any of this, Mike, but obviously I'm sure you've seen a couple of snippets of it over the past couple of days on Twitter and stuff like that. With them moving to this new engine that they've been on now, is this the best avenue for Call of Duty? And I mean that in the way of, like, is Call of Duty now kind of on its best plan forward to at least have success, what they have right now with Activision, in terms of, hey, we're gonna, and what we've heard, it sounds like, for all intents and purposes, they're going to peel back the development of Call of Duty for, take a year off or something like that after the next two kind of get out and through. That we're going to see a break there too, which I think a lot of people want. But at least them confirming, hey, for the next two titles, this is the new engine we're using. This is the new this is the direction we're going. Do you think the direction they're going in right now, knowing that probably there's going to be some changes to the franchise in general that are probably long overdue, do you think this is the best plan of action that they have, really, at this point?
Yeah, I think with regard to Call of Duty, it's definitely a good idea for them to try to play like a bit of nostalgia, like play the nostalgia factor for older folks. Like, I don't have like the numbers in front of me, but I would have to say that there are still older gamers, I guess you could say, quote unquote, like 30, around the 30 age mark, that like probably still play Call of Duty, but I would say that they probably also lost. It's definitely, it's a tricky thing to really discuss as far as like what I think of it from a business standpoint. I think that if you're going to be peeling back to developing less versions of the game, I guess you could say, or less new iterations, that is, then it makes sense that if you have the bandwidth and you're able to handle it, to re-release something like this, or completely rebuild a game like this, because there are going to be people that are going to buy this. There are going to be people that are going to play it for the first time ever, and then there's going to be people that remember staying up till 3 a.m. On weekends with their friends in high school or middle school, or fond memories of Christmas vacation after you got this game for Christmas. I think that it's a pretty solid plan to capitalize on a fan base that's somewhat starved for content, and this is an easy way to like prevent yourself from having to make a brand new game. You at least are using an older game and just kind of bringing it to a newer platform. So I would imagine that the workload is still going to be big because you're obviously going to have to make a new game on a new engine, but at least the bones are there for you to really work with, if that makes sense.
No, definitely. And I agree that it's obviously Call of Duty has, I mean, I want to say it's probably, when you talk about the demographic that it's talking about and it focuses on, I would like to say that, sure, they've lost, some people as time's gone on and whatnot, but the 18 to 35 demographic, that is probably still the franchise that most people associate with. Typically video games and manly dudes, like, it's Call of Duty you always hear kind of tossed around as the boilerplate, like, gamers term. Just because of how popular it has just been so long. It's a zeitgeist, it's been part of the zeitgeist in entertainment for as long as you could really, I want to say at least, now granted, 2002-ish to 5, I want to say 6, kind of still, but really when, and it was popular, but mostly still kind of niche on PC until, I would like to say, Modern Warfare, or probably the original Modern Warfare. That's what, to me, really blew it up and made it into this just fucking behemoth of a franchise. But when you think about, like, who that's still reaching out to, I get kind of keeping it, not status quo, but keeping it as, hey, we're kind of staying right down the middle. We're kind of, we're maintaining the ship, and we have what we kind of view as this platform of Call of Duty, and it's not really a platform yet, but you're at least launching, you're at least launching into something that spreads your Call of Duty experiences of these, whether it's Warzone, Vanguard that's out right now. You could still do it, I think, with Cold War, and then Zombies as well, but you're kind of given to a splash screen that kind of encompasses all of them in your whole experience. The one thing that does suck, which I mean, granted, it doesn't affect me too much, but like anybody who is a Warzone player right now, I feel bad for, since they announced that your progress, anything, I think it's pretty much anything, like any of your cosmetics and things like that you've unlocked or bought or anything like that aren't transferring from Warzone 1 to 2 when that eventually does come out. That to me is bananas, and I would be...
Oh, it's Activision Blizzard. Is it really bananas?
Yeah, that's... Anyways, whenever I heard that, I was like, you just can't be fucking serious. Like, but, I think for this point, I think we just all know change is coming for this franchise. Whether Activision, which they don't really have too much of a say in, once the, ink dries really, within the next, 8 to 12 months, then they really won't have too much of a say in what happens then, I guess. But, I'm sure they want to just kind of keep, hey, we're still plugging along. And even though, Vanguard sucked for the most part and nobody really cared for it comparative to our last handful of releases, at the same time, we're still selling a bunch. We're still active. We're still having tons of people get on our platform. The one thing that I was really excited to see, though, was, which who knows if I'll actually buy the game, but that Modern Warfare 2 is coming to Steam, which I was kind of excited about, because that's one last fucking thing one less launcher I gotta worry about opening up. Even though I like Battle.net, at least. It's a staple. It's usually been Steam and Battle.net I've installed on my fucking computer since, like, 1998. But, well, I shouldn't say 1998, no, with Steam, but you get what I'm saying. Since fucking PC gaming, those are always the two that have always been installed. Anything Battle.net related and Steam. So I can't wait for the day, though, when eventually, once we get to this being a fully realized deal and everything like that, that, we're going to be playing. We have the potential to, with how active we've seen Microsoft being on Steam and putting their games on Steam and not forcing people to, you have to go this, avenue. And even with Bethesda closing down their own launcher now and solely focusing on Steam for their PC releases, like, we live in a very we live in a timeline where there's a very real possibility that we get World of Warcraft on Steam. Like, that level of commitment for all these titles, which would be fucking great. Like, I'm all for like playing your shit wherever you can or whatever. I'm all for that. But me, like, at the same time, I love having everything on Steam. It is just so fucking easy, so I don't have to have 10 different fucking, like, things to go on. You get what I mean? Like, I don't have to worry about having 60 different launchers and updating. Oh, shit, I didn't open up this launcher, so it didn't get the update. Now I gotta wait longer to play that. Like, it's just fucking frustrating. So, anywho, though, one other thing that I really do want to touch on, though, Mike, I know you're a fan of Bloober Team. They did announce a new Layers of Fear, pretty much just called Layers of Fears, being made in Unreal Engine 5. There was a lot of rumors going around about different things with Bloober Team coming off of potentially them working with Kojima in terms of or at least I should say not Kojima, with Konami working on a Silent Hill game, also too having a couple projects of their own, but clearly this being one of them, Layers of Fear, being made in Unreal 5. Mike, you and I are both fans of them. I know some people kind of are a little iffy on them because they kind of get a little psychedelic at times with whatnot, with some of their stuff, and they're always, some people are like, I don't know how I feel about this, but you and I are at least fans of, their take on horror. Is this something you're going to get in and at least try out?
Yeah, I really did actually enjoy the first Layers of Fear game. I played it on Xbox One. It was one of the first games I got with like games with gold or whatever. So I got to experience like the first game, and I thought it was really interesting what they were doing with it. And I'm super excited to see what they put together with Unreal Engine 5, and what they can really build out with it.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. And so am I. I've never played a Layers of Fear game. I think I have. I want to say at least the first one, because I think it was free on. I know I didn't buy it.
It might have been free, like games with gold.
No, that's what I mean. I'm saying like I think I have it on PC. I think on Epic. I'm pulling my Epic account up now because I think it was a free game on that I was like, oh, I've been interested in that. I'm going to play that eventually, and it's on the Epic store, so I never end up playing it because I think I have like 150 games or something on the Epic store, and I've played Fortnite. I think that's it. That's the only thing. So what the fuck? There we go. None of them are popping up. Let me see. I want to say I have. It's gonna bug me. Yeah, I have Layers of Fear 1 and 2, so now I got to go back and play those at least. But I've always been interested in playing Layers of Fear because not only Bloober Team in general, I'm a big fan of them and their work with horror and whatnot, but it very much seemed like, as somebody who likes that Silent Hill aesthetic in that just approach to psychological horror, to me, it seemed like this is the answer to, hey, we're not getting a PT. Hey, we're not getting all these experiences that I would like to see. These guys are at least giving them their own take on some of this that I'm interested in trying out. So I'm actually going to have to get back and play that because I've heard good things about it, and now I'm excited to get in and play this. The medium wasn't my jam necessarily, but I appreciate what it did in the gameplay aspects that it wanted to take with going and pretty much playing simultaneously in two different worlds, and one pretty much the real world and what looked like a version of the Upside Down almost. And doing those side by side and at the same time. Some other games just kind of running through to kind of wrap up our look at Summer Games Fest kickoff. The Callisto project got its really first just big like raw gameplay showing or demo, whatever you want to call it. Today, I'm all fucking in on that game, not only because it's from the makers of the original creator of Dead Space, and a lot of people who are fans of that game, but also too, this looks like the natural evolution of Dead Space. If you guys haven't seen this at all, it's coming out, at least as of right now. It has a December 2nd release date on it. Not only does it look fucking horrifying, but it looks polished as hell too. Now granted, these slice of life parts of the game that you're getting typically are yeah, it's tough because like I always feel bad because some of these it's such a pain in the ass to get these demo or to make these demos for these shows and things like that. All you hear usually is, well, this detracts us. Like, we're so focused on for a handful of months making this short demo that we get detracted from and pulled away from the actual development of the game, and it makes us crunch towards the end and stuff like that when we're focused on making this demo to show to people that is, 10 minutes of this game or whatever you want to call it, even less sometimes, but it has to be super polished and super, because this is what we're showing to people. This is the, hey, should I buy this game? Well, there's a gameplay demo. Let me look at this game. Like, this is the marketing for this game. It has to look good. But fucking A, does this look fucking good? I mean, this is probably kind of thinking out loud with games coming out the rest of the year. Like, this is up there for, like, this might be one of my most anticipated games. Like, I'm super excited to, like, there's games that, like, I'm anticipating, I'm hyped to play, like, tomorrow. The Quarry comes out, the new Supermassive game. I am fucking excited to jump into that. It's getting great reviews. It seems like it is very much a spiritual successor to Until Dawn, and an actual, like, fully fledged, has some time to breathe experience, like Until Dawn, compared to the Dark Pictures anthology that they've been working on, which... like those, but they're very small experiences comparatively. So I'm super excited to get into that. I know it's not going to be like my game of the year or anything like that. I already know it's not going to be, probably. The Callisto Protocol has a chance to be. Like, sure, Elden Ring's probably still going to win that because that game's just fucking incredible. But this is so much what I've been wanting. I love Dead Space. This is very much an actual just step forward evolution of that formula. So I'm excited to get in with that when that drops in December, and hopefully we get some, preview opportunities and whatnot. Definitely go over and check Game Informer. I believe it was last month. It was their cover story. So go over there, check it out. They did a ton of previews. Wesley LeBlanc over there, who I'm buddies with on Twitter and whatnot. One of the editors over there, he did great work on covering that. So go over there, check it out. Moving on, though, just kind of wrapping up, like I said, we got a new trailer from Marvel Midnight Suns, the XCOM take on Marvel to an extent, coming from Firaxis, the developers of XCOM. A new look at Nightwing from Gotham Knights, which is a game that a lot of people are saying could potentially be a day one Game Pass game, potentially, with now, obviously, Starfield getting bumped and whatnot. This might be one of those games that they kind of pull the pocketbook out to say, hey, we're going to pay you to put this on Game Pass day one. Because they have a good relationship with WB, obviously, with Back 4 Blood coming out day one on Game Pass when that launched. So, all good things there. We got a new look at Cuphead, The Delicious Last Course, the DLC gameplay for that. And at least from games, and Mike, I don't think you got a chance to see this one, but there's this one game that's coming out. It's called Witchfire. It was announced at the 2017 Game Awards. I personally don't remember this game. I remember watching this Game Awards, but I don't remember this game. But it very much seems to be like, almost like, I want to say, not a spiritual successor, but this is something that leans into very much Hunt a little bit. Like, the aesthetic, it's guns and like swampy demons and shit like that. Like, look it up. I definitely recommend you look it up, because it's something that I was like, I don't know anything about this, because they don't really have, it sounds like it's coming into early access relatively soon, but it doesn't say anything if it's co-op or, online or anything like that. But I sure as shit hope it is, because this looks like it would be a blast for us to play. It seems like right up our alley. But yeah, there are a couple other games that just kind of came out, like Goat Simulator 3 was announced, which there was never even a Goat Simulator 2, so they're announcing Goat Simulator 3, which is great. A couple of cool indie games that came out that I'm excited about. High Water was one that came out. I love the art style with that. Routine, also Fort Solace looked pretty good that I was excited about. But yeah, there's a lot of decent stuff, but I understand why a lot of people were like, damn, it doesn't feel like it hit it out of the park as much as a lot of people were wanting. But at the same time, too, you got to manage expectations to a degree. If it is, you're not going to see, hey, we're not going to see Starfield gameplay on here because, Microsoft wants you to come and watch their showcase. So,
yeah,
it makes sense. It'd be one thing if it was like, hey, we're going to see, you know, something, hey, this is after the Xbox Game Showcase and Jeff Keighley was able to get Bethesda to bring, you know, another snippet of gameplay or something for his showcase. Sure, that I could understand. But, you know, those...
I'd love to be in the room for that. Not to interrupt you, but I think it'd be just kind of funny to think about for a split second. Could you imagine being in that boardroom with fucking Todd Howard sitting there with Jeff Keighley being like, so I got 2 words for you. Come on.
Yeah,
Look, that's his pitch.
Literally the Peter Griffin snippet from Family Guy where he was like, come on. The fucking cutaway.
It's like, what's it gonna take?
Wasn't it whenever he was fucking like he took over like being like the general manager for like a cigarette company or something like that?
Yeah.
Come on. He was like marketing towards kids, but parents, I gotta say one thing. Come on.
2 words for you is what he would say.
Come on.
Come on.
But yes, that would be to be a fly on the wall in that conversation would be incredible. I can only imagine. Jesus Christ. Anyways, Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode this week. Out of all the stuff we talked about, our rant that we went on in the first half, which was therapeutic as all fuck, I was loving that. Out of everything, and necessary, yes. Out of everything we talked about, where can people find you on the internet? Talk about all the nerdy stuff we talked about today.
You can find me on Twitter at TOYSXLDIER. That's Toy Soldier, and the second O is an X. Or you can find me on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Traveless on most internet platforms, including at Traveless_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS_. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Traveless_, same as Twitter. And if you want to play some games with me, you can do so over on Xbox Live, pretty much any platform of your choice. It's just regular old Traveless. That's TRAVLESS. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox, Xbox Game Pass, and of course PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other podcast services. So, wherever you get a podcast at, make sure you get in there, check us all out, review, subscribe, all that shit, whatever you got to do. Interact with us wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games alike, and our dope giveaways. And with that being said, Mike, that's going to do it for episode this week. Thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on, wash your hands, listen to the doctors, Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.